Hey gang, Mark LeBlanc welcoming you back to the Alley Cat Workshop. I want to revisit a project that I did a couple of years ago, which was to turn rolling pins with a Celtic knot in the middle. And what I found is my initial approach was to cut completely the piece of stock that I had, and then glue up one of these slivers of wood to the color contrast. And what I found is the realignment of the stock was never perfect, and in fact when I turned it, the Celtic knots were a little bit misaligned, which didn't look so good. So I've revisited the approach. Instead of cutting through and through, I'm cutting almost through. And in order to help me, what I've done is I've set up this jig. This is a jig with a 30-degree angle. You could build this with 25, 45, you name it. I mean, it's just a question of building a custom jig for it. It's a really simple one piece of plywood. I've got a table saw mark that goes almost the way through. I've got a couple of, one triangle here at 30 degrees. I've got a brace here to give me a bit of clamping space. And the other thing is I've got underneath this, I've got a couple of pieces of stock to be able to align it in the grooves of my table saw. So I've got the stop. What I did is, let's back up a little bit. What I did is I found the middle point of my stock, put a 30-degree line through that, transferred the line over here, and then when I placed this piece of stock here, then it aligns perfectly, that line aligns perfectly with where my blade is. Now I've got the stop block. It's going to stay there for as long as I need it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make my first cut, do my first glue up with this little sliver of wood. Once that dries out, trim it off, make sure that it doesn't interfere, rotate this 90 degrees, run it again with the same stop or stop block at the exact same spot. And after doing that 4 times, I'm going to have everything sorted out. I'll have the slivers of wood placed in all 4 faces. Once everything is dry, just turn it and you'll get perfect Celtic knots. Now, one thing I will point out, I'll put a link to that video below, but there's a video on Inspire Woodcraft to cut perfectly the perfect thickness for these slivers based on the kerf of your saw blade. It requires no measurement whatsoever. It's brilliant. It's simple, it's easy, and like I said, it's brilliant. So I'll put a link to that below. That's the trick that I'm using in order to cut my little slivers of wood. Okay, let me suit up and we'll do our first cut. finished turning this rolling pin, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So the knots are really well aligned, and the seams or the connections are really solid. Looks beautiful. What the blank looks like, if you've done everything right, is something like this, which looks pretty darn ugly at this point. But what's important is that where the diagonals meet the sides, you want this to be pretty much aligned with the other features. So if I turn this around, you know, this blank is actually in good shape. But I don't see the Celtic knot at all. And what we need to do is take an awful lot of material to expose these beautiful, beautiful knots. So give me a second while I take this rolling pin off, then I'll put this blank in its place, and then we'll start turning. You noticed is that when I am taking out material from the knot, I'm actually starting from the center and going towards the end. The reason I do that is if I went the other way, for example, over here, and my tool would hit this this spline, there's a chance that I would hit the end grain and break something, or at least expose some of the end grain. By going this direction, then I've got a much smoother cut. All right, what else have I done? You see these two lines? That is a mark, arbitrarily what I said is 4 inches from the side, and that's where my taper will start. Because this is a French rolling pin, what I'm looking for is something that is flat in this section and tapers off towards a smaller end by the end. The other thing I did is I took calipers, and what I've done is I figured out, okay, what is the shortest area or the narrowest cut, and it's right over here. So what I want to do is I need to remove material basically all along this section here so that it matches the thickness of this section. So I'm going to take a skew. I'm actually going to try working with a skew here, and I'm going to start from the center and remove material up until I get on this end the same thickness or the same diameter as this guy here. Wish me luck.